Africa Prime, brought to you by Jameson's Select Reserve.
Welcome to this special edition of Africa Prime. My name is Godfrey Mutizwa. Our guest this evening has been called the most powerful woman of the 21st century. She's been called more credible than some presidents. She's been on the list of the most powerful and most influential women and men of the world. She's a media proprietor, she's been an actress, and she is, of course, a top host. Ladies and gentlemen, help me to welcome Oprah Winfrey.
I was thinking, now who could that be? Who could that be?
What's missing for me is the applause. You know, the applause
Well,
that you
yes,
get in your studio
I miss the audience. I miss having an audience, actually, because I would always use the audience as my gauge of what was working and what wasn't. You know, and there are many times when I'd be asking someone a question and I'd be going in places, you know, in territory where it's uncomfortable to ask that question. I would always say, and we want to know, audience, right? Or I would use the audience as my way in. And so not having the audience, you're on your own. You're on your own, Godfrey.
If I wasn't so old, I would say in my next life, I would definitely have an audience. Let's not talk about my age. Let's talk about what you are here for this time round. What brings you to South Africa this time?
Well, this is my 29th time to South Africa. My 29th time.
Wow.
Yeah, I think 29. It may be even 30 or 31 if you count before I was coming for the school. I'm here for the school. I'm here for a celebration. I'm here for a victory dance. Yeah. I'm here for that.
Can you do it?
Yes, I can do it. I'm here. And tomorrow during graduation, during the graduation ceremonies, when you start to hear, yeah. I think it might be me on the stage doing it.
Well done.
Because,
I was wondering actually if you could ululate like an African.
Because this has been quite a journey. Since I sat in Madiba's living room, probably, when was that? 2002. Right. I was sitting in Madiba's living room at his home out in the farm. I think it was Kunu.
Right.
And
Kunu, yes.
Yes, I can't do it.
I can do it.
You can do
I'm
it.
an African.
Okay, you can do it. So I was sitting out there and we were talking about poverty. I was sitting on the floor having tea with Madiba. Isn't that lovely?
Absolutely,
yes.
Great.
I spent 29 days at his home with he and Graça Michel.
Wow.
29 meals, 10 days, 29 meals. So I had breakfast, lunch, and dinner every day, but the last day I didn't have dinner. I could write a book called
You should actually.
Well, I won't.
You should. Why not?
I could have called it 29 days. I literally was out of my mind with joy, sitting, and every day he would wait until I would come to the table and I got to sit on his right hand at the dinner table. It was unbelievable.
I think I understand the effect.
Yeah.
Because we're going to talk about the Oprah effect later on.
Well, let me just tell you. So that was such an amazing time for me. And at first I was like nervous, like anybody would be around me, like, oh, what do I say? And probably about the third day, we started to feel comfortable enough with each other that we could be, this is how you know you're comfortable, when you can sit in the same room and say nothing.
Right.
So we're
when the silence is
with
comfortable.
Where the silence is comfortable. You don't think you have to fill the silence. So I was sitting in the room with him and we were sharing the paper. So he'd finish one section and pass the section on to me. And we started up a conversation about poverty because of whatever was in the news of that day, and got into a conversation about how to change poverty in the world, and would there ever be a time when there wasn't, extreme poverty in Africa and particularly South Africa. And I said, well, I think the way to change poverty is through education, And I said, one day I want to start a school for girls in South Africa.
So the formation of the school was actually the outcome of that conversation with Madiba.
Absolutely, sitting there. Not only was it inspiration, I said one day I'd like to start a school in South Africa for girls. I said it would have to be for girls because I believe that's how you change the world with girls. He said, you want to start a school? And I said, yes. What I meant was one day. I did not mean that day. So that day, that moment, he got up, he put the paper down, he got on the phone and he called Kata Osmo, the late Kata Osmo.
The then education minister?
Education minister. And I didn't know who Kata Osmo was. And he said, found him, he made several phone calls, found him, he was on a boat in Cape Town. He told Kata Osmo that he wanted him to meet with me that day at 5 o'clock. Whoa. And I'm like, okay. So by that evening, I was meeting with Carter Oswald. And there began the dream for the school. And Carter Oswald says, I hear you want to build a school. And I was like, well, I want to build a school one day. Well,
One day
Mutizwa
became
says,
now.
one day became now. And so there began the process for this school.
So Oprah, $40 million later, and I imagine there must be more in terms of time, in terms of resources, in terms of your commitment.
Let me just tell you, 40 million doesn't even begin to answer that question. No, it does not. But it's nice, that's a nice round number that people use, but it doesn't even begin to. Because everything at this school, it was $40 million before we finished it. And since that was before we hired one teacher. Yeah, that's before we hired one teacher or brought in one girl or brought one uniform or paid for one book or one computer or all the myriad of things that even I, going into it, did not recognize the responsibility of when you take in girls whose parents can't afford to send them to the school and can't even get to the school. You know, many girls live in, you know, rural areas and places where it would be unimaginable for their parents to get a plane ticket and come here.
Let's talk about that. A decade later, after all the effort, after all the sweat and tears, what has been the most challenging thing that you have found?
It has been more challenging than I ever imagined.
What have been the challenges been?
The challenges were, number one, not having the infrastructure. Number two, not recognizing how difficult it is to create infrastructure. And believing in the beginning that, oh, I will build this wonderful space, this building, and the teachers will come. I will find great teachers.
Yeah, welcome to Africa.
Everybody, that was the big mistake. And not recognizing that some of the ravages of apartheid were that you had a system that didn't allow people to rise to the top. And so when you're looking for teachers who are at the top, you have to go through a whole lot to find people who have the standard of excellence that I wanted to hold for the school. So yeah, not having the infrastructure. And I would tell anybody who's going to do it, if I had to do it again, I would completely do it a different way.
Right.
It has been, you know, for every step forward, there was another step back. And sometimes there was a step forward and there were two steps back. But this is the thing, Godfrey, that from day one, the very first day, I visited the very first village and saw the very first girl. I held the vision for myself and these girls of what could be possible for them. And through every single challenge, you know, there were times where we're literally brought to tears, brought to my knees with this whole process. I held that vision of those girls. And because of the girls, everything has been worth it.
So, 72 girls later, the first batch of girls have come through 100% pass mark, I've been told. Is this where you want it to be? Is this where this will end?
Oh, of course not.
Where are we?
This is just the beginning. Oh, this is the beginning. Oh, because what would be the point of doing this for 400 girls, even though that 400 continues, that cycle of 400 continues?
Sure.
Yeah. The point was to use this as a model, as sort of an experiment to see if it could be done. You know, we are doing what no one else has ever done.
Sure.
When we went through our crisis, we call it, in the first year of the school, where there was the dorm parent accused of molesting the girls, who was later acquitted, but I believe the girls and still will always believe the girls. Sure. When we went through that, I brought in a trauma expert, a leading trauma expert, who said to me, you know, you're doing what has never been done. No place else in the world have I ever seen, maybe somebody is going to now call you and say, well, we're doing it, have I seen an institution created for disadvantaged girls that wasn't just a holding ground for them to get out and go do what they, you know, most places are reform or places for girls who committed crimes or holding pens for girls who have no other place to go. Right. Never has there been an institution that I know of that was created to say, we know that you come from difficult, challenging circumstances, right, but we know that you're disadvantaged circumstances, but we don't believe your brain is disadvantaged. We believe that you have the power to not only succeed, but to excel. And we believe you have the power to excel and become a great leader. So we're going to build an institution to support you in every way possible to become a leader for yourself, for your family, for your community, for Africa. Well, where else does that happen?
Nowhere. It's
Nowhere.
pioneering work that we're talking about here.
To say, we believe in you, and we believe that no matter how dire your circumstances have been, and let me just tell you this, I'm not going to cry on your show, but I could.
I was hoping for.
No, I could. But let me tell you why I could cry. When I think about where these girls have come from, you know, I found many of these girls literally carrying buckets of water on their head, and they're walking 3 and 4 kilometers to get water in their villages. And now those girls are not just going to college, they're going to college with 5 and 6 and 4 and 3 distinctions. And they will become artists and engineers, they will become social workers, they will become scientists. I mean, I'm not just talking about, you know, we're not putting out people who are just going to be, you know, domestic workers here.
Oprah, I hear you.
You hear me?
I have walked with those girls. I have gone to school barefoot, so I know what you're talking about. How things have changed for the girls who have been lucky enough to make it here. On Saturday, the Africa Prime team attended the first graduation ceremony at the Oprah Winfrey Leadership Academy for Girls and filed this report.
Celebrating the success of the first graduating class of the Oprah Winfrey Leadership Academy for Girls was an auditorium full of proud parents, families, teachers, and special guests.
Each one of these girls has been accepted into a university or college in the United States or South Africa. But what is even more phenomenal is that 60% of our candidates achieved an average of over 75% in 7 subjects.
Top honors at the school went to Bongeka Zuma.
The top student is the student that has the highest overall aggregate. It is with immense pride that I announce our Duck Scholar for 2011, Bongeka Zuma.
Achievements that made Oprah the founder and benefactor who invested close on $40 million in the school ululate at her dream come true.
This is a day of triumph. It's a day of extraordinary victory for girls who are the first in their generation in South Africa to be born free.
Grasa Michelle, the keynote speaker on the day, told of her account of that day when the seed was planted.
Stedman and I are those who were sitting in that same lounge where Oprah and Madiba started to develop the idea of this school. And we were quietly observing, but more importantly, sharing the dream.
Girls from disadvantaged backgrounds all over South Africa, handpicked by Oprah herself.
We went from village to townships and many schools, choosing the girls. I was looking for girls who had the desire, but not the means. And most of those girls were either number 1 or number 2 or had some outstanding achievement in their schools.
A leadership academy founded on the principle of Ubuntu is aimed at grooming future leaders. A journey not only traveled by Oprah, but by the young girls too.
Last night, we had our pajama party, and I brought the tape to show them of the first interviews that they did. Some of them looked like little boys coming in the room. And even they could see, as I could see at the time during the interviews, they were wild-eyed, filled with wonder and expectation, grateful for the opportunity, but not even quite knowing what the opportunity was. They came here, happy to be here, then homesick, then scared.
Mama Oprah went on to give her daughters words of encouragement as they venture out into the big world.
And as you move into the world, I would just hope that you would know that you are smart, not just smart. You are brilliant, inside and out. And I have been more pleased with the graciousness and the kindness and the loving spirit of each of these girls than even their academics, because this school was founded on the principle of Ubuntu. I am because we are. And everything that has happened here has happened because of Ubuntu.
Mashadi Gekana was one of the young ladies who had the privilege to be part of the Oprah Winfrey Leadership Academy, and she looks back at her journey.
This academy was not just a high school. This is a place where expectations are high. The bar is set so high, it is sometimes hardly visible. Or as Mom Oprah puts it, there is no bar. Challenges are inevitable, and opportunities are presented in abundance. It was now left to us to confront these expectations, grow from the challenges, and use every opportunity to not only better ourselves, but our families and our communities. The trajectory of our lives had irrevocably changed from that moment 5 years ago.
Great achievements made by the school, but what lessons can South African education authorities learn from this academy?
What we've done here is that if you're working with girls or boys who are disadvantaged, what I have found to be the biggest issue is that people underestimate you and set the bar too low. And that is indicative of what your test standards are here. The fact that you can pass with a 30%, you know, the leaders of the world, in order to run a successful company, you can't run a successful company working at 30%. As I present to you the inaugural class of 2011 for the Oprah Winfrey Leadership Academy for Girls.
The first ever graduation at this school was a great success. Now all eyes will be on the learners of the 2012 matric class.
This is what you have done now. From here on, this is South Africa. Where to?
Where we go from here is you use this as a model to use globally, because there are not just my girls.
You're talking the world.
I'm talking the world. I'm talking 250 million girls who live in poverty, who live on less than $1 or $2 a day, who have no valuable assets other than their bodies. I'm talking using this as a model to create a sense of identity, a sense of worth, a sense of confidence and being in girls around the world. Because, you know, everybody looks at the, you know, wants to talk about the money spent here, and they want to talk about, you know,
money's important.
Yeah, money's, you need it.
Sure.
But what we have given these girls is more valuable than any matric test. What we've given these girls is more valuable than any dollar amount you could put on it. What we've given them is a sense of self and worthiness.
Has there been any regret along the way?
I have not one regret. I have not one regret. You know why I don't have a regret? Because I didn't know what I didn't know. And so I had to come through this learning curve of understanding that without infrastructure, understanding that, oh, it's hard to find good teachers. Did you know that, Godfrey?
I do.
Well, you should have told me that.
If you'd asked me.
Because I thought, oh my goodness, you know what? I have such great feelings about my teachers and my development as a student, and that's where I found my value was in school. So I thought that you will just open the door and good teachers will just fall through. It's not so. And your school is only as good as the teachers. You can turn a school around with 1 or 2 really great teachers, can turn an entire school around. They can change the culture of the school. So having solid leadership that understands what it means to create a cultural structure and an environment that is going to be 100% supportive of girls. You know, when you come from traumatized backgrounds, every single girl here has already endured what would take out most people.
Sure.
You know that,
sure, I do.
being in Africa. I mean, you know,
I do.
most people, particularly in high school, if you have one bad thing happen to you, you know, it can take you out. These girls, come to this school.
Taken it on the chin and moved on.
Yes, with the most devastating things. You've lost your mother, you've lost your father, you lose your grandmother in the process of being in school. Your brother is shot. Somebody else in your family dies of AIDS. Somebody else's, every single week there is another tragedy at this school. But these girls keep going. They keep getting up. They are the most resilient people I've ever seen or heard of in my life. And they come with such an open heart for hope and wonder. I just, and listen to this. The most remarkable thing about this school is that not once have we ever had to spend hours working on discipline or worrying about somebody bullying somebody or worrying about, because these girls come in here knowing, gift, this is a gift.
Apart from the hair thing.
Now the hair is another issue. That, I know I know African women, black women, we for years have had this whole thing with our hair. Hair issues. Oh, we just have the hair issues. So I came in with a hair rule, and the hair rule was, I want all the girls either to have their heads shaved or their hair pulled back neatly or braided. That's how we all started out.
Look neat, look sharp, look like a student.
Sharp, yeah. Now that's easy to do when you're 12 years old, because they came in at 12 and 13. So right. 12 and 13, they're like, okay, mama, and everybody's happy. And we brought in braiders. We have a hair salon on campus. Really, people have made, I don't know how much money, just because this is a business.
It is.
Here,
it
just
is.
doing hair. You do 400 heads. You do under 400 heads.
It's good turnover.
Good turnover. So it was easier when they were in the 7th and 8th grade. Now, I think weaves have hit Africa, and it's been a lot harder. I came back, and oh my God.
Transformation.
All of a sudden, I didn't even recognize girls. They have 12 pounds of hair on their head. So I'm going to go handle that when I leave here.
We're tracking the story of Oprah Winfrey, and when we come back after the break, we shall be talking more about who she is, where she has been, and perhaps more importantly, where she is going.
Where is she going? Somebody tell me, where is she going?